So be happy and full of joy. Matthew Henry, Puritan commentator, in him, Christ, the day spring from on high has visited the world, and happy are we, forever happy, if that day star arise in our hearts. When Jesus is in your heart, you are made happy. Philippians 4:4, be glad in the Lord always. Again I say, be glad. Oh, wait a minute. Well, that should be rejoice, right? Well, it depends on who's translating it. The Contemporary English Bible, or is it the Common English Bible? There's the CEV, I think that one's Contemporary English Version, and this is maybe the Common English Bible, but CEB and CEV are too close to each other. Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks. Now, I put these different colored phrases in here, which again is sort of modeling how we should do Bible study. Just realize that we have three phrases that are being used here. Three different statements that are combined or stacked one on the next. And properly, we should see a relationship between them, I think. So, rejoice always. What does it mean to rejoice always? Well, whatever it means, coming out of it or related to it will be praying without ceasing. Well, when you pray without ceasing, it can't just mean when you're on your knees doing intercessory prayer or any kind of prayer, because you can't spend your whole life on your knees, right? So praying without ceasing must mean an attitude of prayer and little, brief, quick prayers done throughout the day. What would those prayers indicate is on your mind? Well, in order to pray without ceasing, what must you be mindful of? God. And God's presence with you. And God's presence in the world. And lo, I'm with you always, even the end of the age, and all of that. But we often don't think about that. But when you're praying to God, you're thinking about God. I mean, when you're talking to someone, you're thinking about the person you're talking to, and you're framing your words in light of who that person is. Same thing with prayer. Pray without ceasing. So, rejoice always. Well, a large part of your being able to rejoice always will be dependent upon you being mindful of God always. And that's the spirit of praying without ceasing. And then, in everything, give thanks. I think there is probably nothing that so lends itself to happiness, rejoicing, being glad, being merry. There's nothing that so lends itself to that as thankfulness, and not just thankfulness in an adjective or a noun, but it's giving thanks, the verb. You are thanking God for things in everything. And so always and everything are big words here, but all of these connect. And I just would encourage you, I've got a whole chapter in the the happiness book on gratitude, thankfulness, and how that is essential to our happiness and how it cultivates our happiness. It's so interesting to read secular books that talk about the people who are most grateful and thankful are always the people that are most happy. Always. And that if you're not thankful and you're not grateful as a person, you simply cannot be happy. Now, these are not theological treatises. These are secular psychologists and people that are sociologists that are doing these tests on people. So they're encouraging you to find people to give thanks to. And, the one person they're leaving out is God. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, well, this is all good. And, there are some secular people that are more grateful than Christians are. And they're going around thanking more people than Christians are thanking. But we of all people should not only be thanking our parents, our friends, the people we work with, for the kindnesses, the person in traffic that doesn't cut you off, but the person in traffic that lets you in. You know, sometimes people get so upset about, traffic situations, they'll talk about, oh, this guy cut in front of me. I say, did anybody let you in when you were waiting and you're trying to make a turn? No, not one person. I think they did, because they do for me, and I don't think they know the difference between you and me. And so I just am noticing those people. And I think that I'm sure people cut me off, but I think a lot of it is a mindset. It's like people who are watching a football game or a basketball game, and they're always convinced that the referees are out to get their team and all the bad calls. And you'll have two, maybe even two friends that are cheering for two different teams, and they're together. And if you gave them a quiz at the end, who did the refs favor? It would always be the other team. And who did the refs rip off? And it will always be your team. Isn't that odd? It's the same game. The ref couldn't have been favoring this team and that team, and they couldn't have been ripping off this team and that team. I mean, there could be individual calls, yes, but overall, and we're just convinced, we see life through these very ungrateful, chip on our shoulders, people are out to get us, or, type of way, and we become extremely unhappy people, and unhappy people are carriers of unhappiness. Have you ever been around a truly joyful person, a truly happy in Jesus person that just walks in and happiness comes in the door with them? And then pretty soon, and maybe it's a member of your family, and maybe you have the other kind of member of your family, and maybe you have them both at the same table. And when one of them shares, you just feel like the sun is shining. And the other one shares, you just feel like it's dark and dreary and rainy and Well, that's the way life is. Gratitude. I mean, we're not going to, I've got whole chapters in the book on happiness about actually how to be happy in your life. And we're not going to get to most of that stuff because we have such a limited amount of time. I mean, I did a full seminary course on a theology of happiness, like I've done on theology of money, and a theology of evil and suffering, and theology of other things. So all we can do is in 3.5 hours just kind of get some of it. And so I have to kind of pick out some of the core things, and the practical things are not going to be the core things. But still, I'm taking the time to say this because it should be practical in terms of our application of these principles and truths.